Mo Heyman to the front. Pulling away from Zulu. Fellowship is third as Mo Heyman pulls away. And Mo Heyman remains unbeaten, winning the Fountain of Youth over Zulu.
Bobby Shoemaker, Andrew Calvano. It's Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge for Friday, April 1st. 4 races as always, 2 at Gulfstream Park, 1 at Santa Anita, and we'll finish things off at Turfway Park, Andrew, for what is a very intriguing Kentucky Derby prep race. But let's waste no time. Let's go to the great race place in Arcadia, California. It's Santa Anita Race 7. It's down the hill, 6.5 furlongs on the turf. It's a Grade 3 San Simeon Stakes for 4-year-olds and up. Andrew, this is a field of 9 and Guns Loaded. The 7 horse is your 5-2 morning line favorite. Give us your players in here and then your top pick.
Yeah, and looking at this race, number 7, Guns Loaded, definitely looks like the one to beat for Doug O'Neill and Rafael Bejarano, making the jockey switch after Santiago Gonzalez's injury. Looking at it, he's going to be on the front end, and Bobby, that's where you want to be on the downhill turf. That's the way the course has been playing out. And, we've talked about downhill turf courses here at Santa Anita, in recent tournament talks, and it just seems that the deep closers we're picking just aren't coming through. So now I'm looking for a horse that's either going to be right on the lead or is going to rate. And with that being said, I look to the outside of number 7, Guns Loaded, with number 8, Outside Nashville, 6-1. The Buyers fit very nicely in this group. Ran a very game 5th last out in the San Carlos behind horses like Kobe's Back, Coastline, and Calculator, 30-1. 4th in this race last year, and that was the last time this horse has touched a downhill turf course. So going into this race, I know that Jerry Hollendorfer does very well with horses coming down from Golden Gate and down to Santa Anita. Right. I'm hoping the good things continue. I'm hoping this horse can rate right off the 2 speed horses that I see in this race. And the 95 Buyer Speed figure 2 back in the Lost in the Fog at Golden Gate matches up extremely perfectly with Guns Loaded. And I'm just hoping at 6-1 we get a better price with the 2 favorites taking some more money.
Who do you see being the speed in this race? You said lay off 2 of the speed horses. Who do you see being the speed of the speed in race 7?
I think Guns Loaded will be a little more on the lead than he has been in the past. Sometimes he likes to sit in that 2 path. I think he'll go out a little more. I think one of the major speed players, and we'll see a little new bit of fashion, is number 9, if I'm pronouncing it right, Alateria. I think they just send that horse out to the lead and hope that good things happen. In the fall here, ran some pretty good races on the downhill turf course, being up on the lead. Although the running lines will show that 7th place, 6th place through the quarter and the half mile, but really has some speed that really hasn't been able to be shown. Right. So I think that's the major speed horse. Guns Loaded sits right off, and Outside Nashville's right behind them.
I thought out of the 4 races that we're going to cover tonight, this was the most intriguing from a talent perspective. I thought these horses were very good at what these credentials tell them they have to do today, meaning going 6.5 furlongs specifically down the hill. I think you can make a case for Hey Dude. You can make a case for Guns Loaded. You can certainly make a case for Outside Nashville. Anytime Jerry Hollendorfer teams up with guys like Mike Smith and Martin Garcia, he means business. And it seems like he's made his living on this track in this particular type of race. I ended up going with the number 4 horse, Andrew, No Silent. As you mentioned, this racetrack is very unique for this type of 6.5 furlong event. Some horses take to it very well when they haven't run well at 6.5 furlongs at other racetracks. And I think this is one of these circumstances. His 2 best races have been at this racetrack at this distance. The last attempt at this turf course was on December 26th, where he stalked a very hot pace and was only beaten by 2.5 lengths. Yes, he finished 7th, but only a 2.5 length defeat. On October 3rd, he got a pace setup, which I think he'll get today. He stalked the pace, he pounced, He won by a length in 3/4. Could have probably won by more. And again, I think that's what's going to happen on Saturday. I think this horse likes this type of setup better than anybody else in this field. And as you mentioned, trip is everything going down the hill. And I think he'll get the trip he needs, a very similar trip to his trip in October, and he'll win this race. Now, is it going to be a 7-2? I'm not really sure. I can't really dictate what the guys out in California are going to do. I know you said you set your morning lines. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but do you have a feel for what you think this horse is going to go off at when the bell rings?
Yeah, originally I had No Silent 9-2, and I had Hey Dude at 5-2, and then 3-1 on Guns Loaded. So right around there, but I was expecting a little bit of price on No Silent, and that's actually why I was a little hesitant at the 7-2, because I liked them at 9-2, but wanted to just find a higher price. But I think No Silent's a huge, huge factor in this race, and like you said, that Eddie D race on October 3rd could be the best in this field.
No question about it. Your thoughts on Guns Loaded, the morning line favorite? Do you agree with that? Because I do personally. I think he is the horse to beat. I'm not necessarily saying he's vulnerable. I just think that there are a lot of horses that are running the same type of numbers that could be better odds.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. And, Bob, we're looking at Rafael Bejarano and Doug O'Neill. So,
Right.
Of course, they're going to be the favorite in, most of the races they're in. But the horse has lived up to it. He's been bumping up in class, and he's been performing and improving every step of the way. He's going to be right there on the front end. He's taken very well to the downhill turf course, and he is a deserving favorite.
So Andrew is on the 8, outside Nashville. I'm siding with the 4-horse, No Silent. So now let's go to Hollandale Beach, Florida for an undercard that is loaded with talent, just not large fields like we're accustomed to at Gulfstream Park. Race 11 on the card. It's the Grade 3 Orchard Stakes. It's a 1 3/8 on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. It's a field of 9. And Andrew, your morning line favorite is the 4-horse Photo Call 2-1. Understandably so. Did you find a way to legitimately beat this horse?
Yeah, I thought Photo Call was definitely the horse to beat, and I'm not going to go too deep in this race as far as horizontals are concerned. Photo Call's the only Grade 1 winner, and his face just so much tougher. Second off a layoff, goes from one of the coldest barns in America, Bob. That Grand Motion barn in the early winter was extremely cold, nationwide.
Yeah.
So now he's into the Todd Pletcher barn, who obviously runs the Gulfstream Park circuit down here as we transition to Belmont. So it goes back into the hottest barn. Castellano stays aboard, so definitely to be feared. Bob, like I said, I'm not going too deep in this race. I thought the only horse that was really a factor was number 3, Suffused at 4-1. First-time starter for Bill Mott. Has some very competitive races in England that would beat half of the field because, Bob, this looks like a pretty soft field other than your favorite. Raced older girls competitively, second part of the 3-year-old campaign last year, and was the beaten favorite going this distance at York. Bill Mott clicks at near 30%, first-time North American, first-time Lasix, and a layoff. Don't want this one to be too far off the pace, just tucked in early on. And Bob, with that said, I wanted to ask you, with these long races going on the turf, what do you think is a crucial plan for these jockeys and where they want to position your horses when going along?
Well, that's a great question. I understand 1 3/8. When you're going that distance, you can afford a little bit of leeway as far as trip. And if something happens early in the race where you don't get the spot that you would like, but I have found this turf course, unlike a lot of others, to not be forgiving when it comes to wide trips, especially early in the races. If you get caught hung out wide, specifically in that first turn, it just sets you up to go wide again in the second turn. And unless you've got the best of the best, it just puts you against the wall. And most of the time I'm seeing horses not be able to run that wide through the first couple of turns and then end up winning the race, even though if they're the best on paper, and they even end up looking like the best horse on film, but the trip just continues to kill them. So I would say you always want to save ground. That's clear. And then hope you can find room late and swing out. I was watching a lot of film this week of Irad Ortiz in New York and why he was so successful last summer. Now, a lot of that had to do with the fact he was on Chad Brown horses, but also he was rolling when it came to making the right move at the right time, looking behind him, seeing where his gap was going to come, swing out, and make that one run. And I think that is the key to any turf race when you're going long and you're not going to be on the front. So that would be the key at Gulfstream Park. Don't get hung wide, Andrew, and specifically don't get hung wide going into that first turn.
Mm-hmm.
So my selection, Andrew, unfortunately, is the favorite, the 4 Photo Call. I mean, as you mentioned, Todd Pletcher gets his hands on this horse for the second race. I thought the first race was certainly wasn't an embarrassment off of a 105-day layoff, albeit Tampa Bay, and I know the numbers can, certainly not stack up to numbers at Gulfstream Park. Nevertheless, he's the class of the class. I like the 4 Furlong 48 work on March 26th. His Breeders' Cup race was extremely competitive. Look who he lost to: Stephanie's Kitten, Queen's Jewel, only beat 3 3/4 lengths. If he's anywhere near that performance, which I expect him to be, he's going to be very difficult to beat. The problem is he's going to be 6-5, 7-5, something of that nature. Look, there are certain situations where we've done this on the show where we think a favorite's vulnerable, or we think that there's a horse that's going to be much higher odds that, with the right setup, can win the race at a price or run second, what have you. I just don't see it here. This horse is a standout, not only on the racetrack, but connections as well. So from a tournament perspective, build the back end of your tournaments around this horse. Just say, look, this horse is a winner. I've got to try to find prices elsewhere. The problem that I come across, I find this Gulfstream Park card, especially the latter part of it, to have the potential of being extremely chalky.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So outside of Photo Call, I did see the 3 horse, and I wrote here in my notes, the 3's intriguing. I had the 30% Mott. Pedigree's there. Class is there. His certainly, I would argue, faced better than anything in this field, other than possibly the 4 once at the Breeders' Cup. I just like to have my Mott horses have a race or 2 underneath their belt. The only time I like Mott horses right off the layoff or right off a claim is when I see a 5 Furlong 59 work.
Yeah.
But when I'm seeing 5 furlongs and 101, 4 furlongs and 49, another 5 furlongs and 101, that tells me that this horse, in Bill Mott fashion, is going to run even, and flatten out in the lane. And then next time out, expect a bigger effort. I do think the horse is very talented. Could he win this race? Sure. I just don't think he's ready to win it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And like you said, Bob, I mean, first thing when I do and make the morning lines, I had Photo Call 7-5, and really, truly the horse to beat. And that's why I would suggest to everybody playing horizontals, this is not a race you need to go that deep in.
Right.
If you feel yourself, with the chalky card and, you want to stretch out elsewhere, this is not the race to stretch out. I think the 3 and the 4 get you through here.
One more horse I just wanted to ask you about, for the simple fact that it's Clement and Julien Leparoux, who you could argue is the best jockey in the country right now. Clement has no problem winning right off the layoff. Had been running at Aqueduct. Before that, Belmont and Saratoga, where the waters certainly are much deeper. Any chance that this horse could pull an upset, considering how hot Leparoux is and the Clement off the layoff angle?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the numbers fit there. I'm a big fan of Julien Leparoux, and I know he catches, a lot of criticism, but I personally, he's a top 5 turf jockey to me.
I agree.
Maybe that's the horses he's riding, like he has Tepin, but I think he's just one of the best turf jockeys at bringing in the prices. I would definitely keep him in my top 5. With that being said, this horse's buyers are very competitive. If he runs a race back to that last one in October, going this distance at Belmont Park will be a huge factor in which he wired that field. Going to be the speed, but Bob, at the end of the day, I just saw the 4 and running them down.
Yeah, I agree. The 4's just too good, especially second off the layoff and second off the trainer change to Todd Pletcher. I mean, I can't imagine. What his numbers are historically. since he left D. Wayne Lucas and how good he's been off
Yeah.
that type of angle. So let's move on to Gulfstream Park, race 13. It's the Pan American Stakes. It's 1.5. It's a grade 2, 1.5 mile turf event. It's for 4-year-olds and up. It's a field of 11. Your morning line favorite, Wake Forest, understandably so, at 5-2. Chad Brown, first off the claim, despite the long layoff. Did you see somebody able to upset the apple cart here?
This is another race, Bob, where you just see the connections. Chad Brown getting his hands on the horse for the first time. The horse has incredible class overseas. Raced a decent Arlington Million race, facing some good horses. Definitely saw this one as the horse to beat again. But, Bob, to me, I'm trying to find the prices, especially on the turf. And like we just talked about a couple seconds ago, Julien Leparoux and Christophe Clement, that's who I'm on here. So I'm on number 10, Montclair, at 12-1. I'm looking for a horse that can go long and doesn't mind it. This horse is a grade 3 winner, a grade 2 place in France. And it seems to me that Euros tend to have the advantage going these long distances, 1.5 miles, over horses that are bred here in America. So has a win over the 1.5 miles. Clement brings him in off a layoff, last out, wins going away. And Bob, I'm sure you can attest, winning a turf race by a quarter, 1 3/4 lengths is kind of similar to winning on dirt by 3 lengths.
Absolutely.
That's how they're going. And an angle we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks here on tournament talk, like Bill Mott does, Christophe Clement, I find that he tends to do the same thing as far as bringing his horses on a layoff and prepping them for something much bigger. So my understanding is Christophe Clement just throws him in here, sees what he does, and sees if he can get him back at the class that he was overseas. Wins that race. He draws out nicely here today. Now, granted, he may have never faced tough fields here in America, but I think he fits the field with his buyer numbers. I don't know what you have on time form's end, but on my end, he fits nicely and could possibly be an upset to number 7, Wake Forest.
First off the layoff, after 181 days, the 10 horse ran a 1:11 time form U.S. speed figure. I thought the most intriguing horse here going forward was Grand Tito. Now, I was on this horse last time out at 9-1, going 1 3/8, where he beat Kygan that day and was very impressive in doing so. Gets a significant jockey upgrade to, just the best jockey in the country, Javier Castellano. So that clearly tells you something right there. Not sure how good this horse is. A lot of people are very high on him. I think the ceiling could be high if he can match what he did last time out. But if you go back into the past performances and compare and contrast that last race to what he's done historically, no race he ran is even close to what he did. I mean, you're talking a 1:21 time form U.S. speed figure. His highest before that was a 1:17. He could be, the light bulb just could have came on for this horse, Andrew. But I'm not willing to buy it, and I'm sure that this horse is going to be bet below 4-1 because we live in a what have you done for me society. And last time out, he was as impressive as any horse in this field in North America, and he's going to get bet. I thought another horse that was intriguing, obviously, is Kygan. I think he is your most likely winner because he's as consistent as they come. He runs good race after good race. His numbers are consistent. 121, 124, 120, 125. Mark Casse. Joe Bravo's kind of found himself again, especially in spots like this going long on the turf. I think he's your most likely winner, but in the end, and I hate to be boring here, I went with the morning line favorite. I mean, you're going to give me Chad Brown, first off the claim, Johnny Velasquez. They mean business. And how I do numbers, Andrew, I calculated the Arlington Million race, and it is so much faster than any other race run by any other horse. And understandably, it was won by Pizza Man and Big Blue Kitten, finished second, and Shining Copper, who I've been a fan of since this horse came to North America, who finished third. Ran evenly late, but only beat 5.5. First time in America after, a couple of workouts. Now, Chad Brown, March 28th, runs 5 furlongs in 1 minute flat. That's a 1 second improvement from the March 21st workout. They're 7 days apart. They're evenly spaced. This is vintage Chad Brown. This is the most talented horse in the field. if he's ready to come and run his best race off the layoff, which who gets their horses better off the layoff in a race like this than Chad Brown? 7-horse Wake Forest 5-2 Morning Line will probably be your favorite, but I just don't see how this horse loses unless it's to Kygan, the 1-horse.
Mm-hmm. And Bob, a question I want to ask you: what do you think about Chad Brown's other entry, number 9, Seeking Alpha, coming in on a 3-race win streak? We always kind of see this sequence with Chad Brown, and you can even make the argument for Todd Pletcher, but Chad Brown here wins the main special, goes in a non-winner of 1 at Gulfstream allowance race, bumps up a little bit more to an optional claimer, all with Javier Castellano, enters here with Luis Saez. This horse is going to be very close to the pace. What do you think about him, Bob?
I'm not as big on class as others because, as I said many times, they don't know what they're running for. They don't know who they've run against before. They don't know who they're running for against today. But he has been able to have it his own way against Cheaper. And that is not going to be the case on Saturday. Grand Tito, who's better, in my opinion, is going to be with him every step of the way. So they're either going to duel each other into submission or the 4 is going to put him away. I don't give much respect to the 9. Will he have a pace advantage on a turf course that is absolutely playing the speed despite the torrential rain that they got last Friday? Yes. But I just don't think he's good enough here. But if there's a trainer that can get a horse ready on this type of jump, it could be this horse. My question to you is this: is Seeking Alpha in this race to duel with Grand Tito to set it up for Wake Forest to come from off the pace?
When you see 2 different owners, you would kind of hope that that's not the case because they're not entering. Obviously, I guess from that perspective, you would want, both horses to have an equal chance, for both connections. But, that's definitely what's going to happen. This horse is definitely going to go out there with the 4, and Wake Forest will most likely get the better trip of the 2 Chad Brown horses. So, you can't just tell Seeking Alpha and Luis Saez don't go out to the lead, even though that's how we won every race so far. So, I think it's just a matter of how much Chad Brown wants the 9 to press the 4.
Right.
And the 9 can even stay in the race if he's not pressing the 4.
Right. Well, I've always said this. I think Luis Saez's strength, and I think he's got a lot of strengths. Now, I haven't liked how he's rode this meet at Gulfstream, but the strength of his strengths is going long on the turf on the front end. He made a living at that at Belmont Park in Saratoga last year. So this is what he's good at. Now, again, I think he's outclassed and he's not as good as others that are going to be doing the same thing that he's going to be doing. But I'm never going to discount Chad Brown. And obviously, if you're playing horizontals and you have the bankroll, I don't know if you could leave the 9 out, to be perfectly honest. But at the end of the day, I think the 7-horse is the horse to beat. Runs anywhere near that effort at Arlington Park with now Chad Brown training him, I think he'll mow him down in the lane. So we're going to move on to the last race of Tournament Talk, certainly not the least. It's a very difficult race, to say the least. The Turfway Park Race 10. It's the Grade 3 Horseshoe Casino Cincinnati Spiral Stakes. It's a 1.8 for 3-year-olds. It's a field of 12. And the also familiar Aeroforce, the number 10 horse, is your 3-1 morning line favorite. Break this down initially, Andrew, from a pace standpoint. And do you believe that Aeroforce is the rightful favorite in this spot?
Yeah, Bob, and I think there's going to be a decent amount of speed here, and most of it's going to come from the horses from the inside of these 12 horses. Might be some speed shown from 2-step time if he decides to go out, but the way I really saw Jensen, the 3, and number 4, Don't Be Salty, out on the front end.
As did I.
With Aeroforce, Bob, I've been on Aeroforce since the beginning. Big fan of him, on the turf. I was on him because, like I said, Julian Leparoux, I just thought he was the one. When he came back on Churchill Downs over a sloppy course in the Jockey Cup, wins again, I said, you know what, this could be a Derby horse. Obviously, does not run anything up to par in the Risen Star. Now he's kind of left off the Derby trail, so this is an interesting spot here. Because from what I've heard, they don't want to push this horse any forward as far as the Kentucky Derby goes. But numbers tend to transfer better from turf to synthetic.
Absolutely.
Maybe they're just putting in this horse to see what can happen, and they'll have a shot on the first Saturday in May. As big a fan as I am at Air Force, I just don't think he's going to get it today. I say that from a numbers perspective. I think he's going to be a little more bet below 3-1. And with that being said, Bob, I'm just stuck on 2 horses, and I'll give you them both. Number 3, Jensen with Florent Giroux, Larry Jones. Larry Jones even owns the horse, so that's just a little bit more inspiring for me. Improving with every start, and it's going to be a huge factor early. Has the hottest jockey in the country right now. I know we spoke about Julian Leparoux, but how about Florent Giroux just, going nuts right now? One of the fastest. Ran into Dolphus 2 back on January 31st, who came back, won a decent race there. Clicking at 37% between the jockey and the trainer. If this horse gets on the front end and opens up a length on the rest of the horses, that could be it. From there, the other horse I was looking at was number 12, Azar, for Todd Pletcher and Manny Franco. Impressive in the dirt debut last time out at Gulfstream Park in a $75,000 optional claimer.
Absolutely.
Even forced to go 4 wide and battle a game competitor who was coming up a very live rail bias that day. I'm looking at it from Manny Franco's coming down here. He's leaving some good horses behind on the Aqueduct card, which was filled with state-bred stakes. Todd Pletcher shipping to Turfway Park. I haven't seen it too often.
No.
So, I think Todd Pletcher says, this horse can do it. We want to put him on the Derby Trail, see if we can win this race and, move him forward. $300,000 purchase. The connections have some confidence in him. And between those 2, Bob, I'm just stuck on him. I'm going to look at the Turfway Park and how the track's playing. If it's playing speed, I'll go to Jensen. If it's playing from horses coming off the rate, then I got to go with Azar. But that could be a tough one between the 2.
I watched the race that Azar run, and you're talking about a horse that did have I thought it was a bad trip considering wide all the way around the racetrack. And when you do that at Gulfstream, you leave yourself susceptible to the speed saving all the ground on the inside. And that didn't matter. If this horse gets a better trip from Johnny V, this horse wins by more than 3 3.25 lengths. Mm-hmm. So I certainly respect that selection. I found this race extremely difficult to read, and here's why. Horses coming from turf, horses coming from dirt, horses coming from synthetic. Obviously, I agree with you. Turf translates better to synthetic, but there's some horses in here that run extremely well on turf. They put them on synthetic, and they got significantly slower. Then they go back to turf, and then they improve. The last race on synthetic was like 6 months ago. So you don't know if they improved just because they got back on turf or if they're growing into their own. So I thought it was extremely difficult. In the end, I landed on the 8 horse. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. Grand Motion was cold. He's gotten better. And if you look at this horse, first off the claim, after a 132-day layoff, albeit Golden Gate, this horse breaks slow, showed no speed, was then fanned 4 and 5 wide, made a very good late rally, and the numbers came up strong down the lane. And here's what I'm thinking. Motion gets this horse for the second time in a race. I'm gambling on him becoming a better gate breaker, because if that's the case, this horse is a big-time player and would have, quite frankly, won the graded 3 stakes race at Golden Gate last time out. And if that's the case, I'm certainly not going to get 6-1 at this juncture. But he didn't win. He didn't look all that impressive if you just look at the 3-length defeat. But you got to go back and watch this race. This horse was ultra impressive. I'm a big fan of second off the layoff or second off of a trainer change, in which I respect. If Grand Motion's got a strength, it's turf or synth, since they're so alike. I think this pace is going to be extremely hot. Don't Be So Salty is going to go out to the lead. The 4 horse, your 3 horse that you mentioned, is going to go out to the lead. I also think the 11, if he breaks well from that outside post, can be a pace threat as well. I think this horse is good enough. And if it gets the pace set up like I think it will and breaks a little bit better, I think the 8 horse wins this race. It may be around the same odds as his morning line.
Yeah, without a doubt, Bob. And I'll tell you why I focused a bit of time on the 8 before going to my horses. Motion gets this horse, broke terribly on that February 13th race. Had he broke a little bit better, he definitely would have been more of a factor. But look at the horses he's run into. If you look back at that Woodbine race, he runs into Riker. couple weeks back, we chose Riker to win whatever race, prepping for the Kentucky Derby. Tampa Bay Derby. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Riker didn't run that good of a race there, but still Riker's a horse to be respected. Look who he runs into at Golden Gate, frank conversation. They ship the horse out to Dubai. They don't ship these horses who win these races for fun. So obviously he's running behind some very good horses. He had trouble his last start. Like you said, motion was very cold, but he has been picking up the pieces here. Fires a gate drill March 20th at Santa Anita before the ship. So all positive things showing toward the 8, and definitely going to be a major player here.
Yeah, and the 2 works as well, 5 furlongs in 1 minute. I mean, that's a good work. It's not, eye-popping, but it lets you know that this horse is in shape. And really, you're just trying to maintenance breeze a horse like this at this point after showing that much talent first off of a layoff. Just keep him healthy for the ship. And again, I think the hot pace is going to be there, Andrew, and I think the 8 is a major player. So as far as horizontals, if you were to play a trifecta, exacta, obviously we know you like the 3 and the 12. Would you include the 8? What are some other horses that you would include in a bet like that?
Definitely. As far as horizontally speaking now, I haven't looked at the pick 4 sequence, but if I could find a solid single one race and I know I can allow myself to spread here, I would definitely be using number 3, Jensen. Number 4, Don't Be Salty. I don't know what he's going to do on the lead. And between those 2 horses, either or could really just go out and open up a good length there. Number 8, definitely to be included for the reasons we just spoke about. You have to include Air Force just in case the numbers do translate. Azar is another one. And as far as the price, I even kind of looked at number 2, Surgical Strike, coming in off the Battaglia win here at Turfway Park. Pretty decent numbers on a synthetic, a first and a third, coming in prepping for this race is what it looks like. Although the buyer numbers really aren't there.
No, they're not. They're not time for them either.
They're not there whatsoever. Maybe it's just a horse for the course who's just prepping for this race. I mean, it's not like these last 2 races at Turfway Park, he was 20 to 1, 15 to 1. I mean, he was bet, so maybe that's the case. Maybe he's a factor, but like I said, we gotta look at the sequence to see if we can find a strong single somewhere so we can spread a little deeper there.
So in race 10 at Turfway Park, Andrew is on either the 3 or the 12, probably going to depend on the price, and I am certainly on the 8 horse if I'm still in contention in any tournaments that I'm going to play. Now, Andrew, we do have a couple of minutes. I'll put you on the spot. It's about the Florida Derby. Now, it's the most talked about race of the weekend. To me, and I don't know about you if you've even looked at it yet, it looks like a 2-horse race. It looks like it's between Mohaymen and Nyquist. Again, putting you on the spot here, if you had to take a horse, who would it be? Would it be Mohaymen or would it be Nyquist? Not long term. We're talking about for this race on Saturday.
It's like you said, it just really is a 2-horse race. Mohaymen obviously has the upside, and coming back, he's on his home course where he's undefeated there, obviously undefeated elsewhere, but hasn't lost here at Gulfstream Park. I mean, it's going to be a battle for the ages, and really, this reminds me of just like a modern-day match race, from back in the day. I want to say Mohaymen, but I'm an underdog kind of guy. I want to see Nyquist do well off the ship. I want to see that, he gets a little more out of that 1 turn, 7 furlong race in San Vicente. Just hoping, because he looks so tired there, and pedigree may suggest he doesn't want to go a little longer.
Right.
I'm just hoping Doug O'Neill's putting this one in the right direction, and he can spark an upset over Mohaymen.
I do believe Mohaymen has the edge for the simple fact that Gulfstream Park's surface, from what I understand, is unlike any other surface, which is why a lot of horses that do well there don't go elsewhere and perform as they did at Gulfstream Park. I think Mohaymen's long-term future is much brighter, not only on the Triple Crown Trail, but the 1.25 miles or the classic distance, if you will. But Karen McLaughlin is a conservative trainer from this aspect. He doesn't, of course, he wants to win every race, but he's thinking big picture with this horse. I'm not sure that this horse is going to be fully cranked for the Florida Derby. And you know who wants it and needs it more? It's Nyquist camp. Why? $1 million bonus if they win this race, because he was born and bred in Florida. He won the juvenile. If you win the Florida Derby, then you get the bonus. Nyquist is going to be what I feel like is at his best. However good Doug O'Neill can get this horse, I think he'll be as good as he can be on Saturday. And we've seen in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile from a very wide outside post that his good is pretty damn good.
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you this. I think Nyquist wins this race on Saturday for the simple fact that I think Nyquist is going to be ready. And I'm not saying Mohaymen won't, but again, they're thinking first Saturday in May. So
Yep.
I'm picking Nyquist as well to pull the minor upset at 6-5 or something.
Minor upset.
Right. Well, that'll do it this week for Tournament Talk on the Tournament Edge. We hope we found you a lot of winners. For Andrew Calvano, I'm Bobby Shoemaker, and until next week, good luck.
Good luck, guys.